Today's conference was really about raising awareness of the Positive Impacts Project, which is the partnership project between Norfolk and Norwich Race Equality Council and the Ipswich and Suffolk Council for Racial Equality. And the aim of the project is really to build the capacity of migrant workers so that they can be self-sustainable and to help them access services and eliminate barriers to accessing services. It's quite exciting because it's actually a project that sits within black and minority ethnic-led organisations.
I was asked by Jane to manage the project, and the portfolio of the project was migrant workers. And my first question when Jane said to me she wanted to look at the sort of positive impact of migrant workers was, what is a migrant worker? My parents came here as a migrant worker in the 60s, and at what point were they no longer a migrant worker? And now we're looking at new and emerging migrant workers. What is the different definition?
The first question I'm going to ask you, of course, on the topic I'm here to talk to you about is who is a migrant worker? But my short answer to that is I am a migrant worker. The speech today is to look into the legal aspects of life here as a migrant worker. That led me into looking into the present legal framework that we have, which countries produce mainly migrant workers, and with particular attention to the east of England. The element of migration and the occupational engagement that follows it is what really underlies the definition of a migrant worker, where people who have left our home, our country, our villages, and we've come to this society that when you were a small boy, we were thinking, oh God, throw me there, and that's my paradise. We touched on the fact that migrant workers themselves as a concept become so diluted because there are so many people that comes from abroad for economic engagement reasons, which puts them in the bracket of who a migrant worker is.
The way that the conference was done today was about bringing those migrant stories to life, because I felt that was the only way to really see and feel how it went on, because we could have just talked, we could have had speakers, but actually I went out and I filmed real stories and I got actors to reenact real case studies so that we could see something real and then have some real conversations at the table.
I was a tradesman, a steel carpenter. But I had to take a laboring job even though I had qualifications. My image of England was all changing. All my dreams and hopes was all crumbling.
As you're probably aware, there is quite a few different analogies of bullying and racism and people coming into this country, not just in the last 70 years, where my play tends to depict, but also more recently, refugees from East and Western Europe. Particularly my piece is really looking at what it was like for our Caribbean parents and uncles and grandparents who came in the 50s and the difficulties they would have had compared with today.
Well, our presentation today was actually an adaptation of a play that we did last year, which was looking at the experiences of Portuguese, Polish and Afro-Caribbean migrants into Suffolk.
Everyone who comes through here, Mrs. Kowalski, has baggage. Baggage of all shapes and sizes. People bury stuff, you see, until something comes along to bring it back up to the surface. A major life-changing event, a death of a loved one, the oncoming child, as it were. Our job is merely to let you recognise what brought you here, what you want to take with you on your journey, and what you want to leave. None of it is lost or discarded. It remains here until people come to find it again.
Why are you doing this?
Well, I'm an official, Mrs. Kowalski. It's my job. Actually, to tell you the truth, I only do it in the hope of finding my own baggage along the way.
What I want to suggest to you is that, and again we've been hearing that already, is that rural spaces are changing. And so some of the things that people like Roger Asquith are talking about when they talk about lost villages are changes that are taking place. And one of the ways in which those changes are taking place is in terms of structure and economies. And clearly, the relationship between the countryside and agriculture is shifting. And if we just look at the Commission for Rural Communities' own figures in 2008, they say that no more than 2.8% of employment in rural areas is agriculturally based.
I was really delighted to be invited to come and talk today about some of the work that I'm doing. And really what I was just trying to introduce to the day was my ideas about the countryside as being a site of change at the moment.
Until one evening, I was at home and Tyree came back after playing with his friends in the green. He came in and he was crying. I asked him what was the matter. He said the boys had been calling him a black Zulu, an African Zulu, and taking the mickey out of his accent. I said, who had done this? He said it was Matthew, yes, Anthony and Yvette's son. So I told him to wait there and I would go over and talk to them. I went over and knocked at the door. Yvette answered. She said, come on, Robert, come in, come in. So I went in and I told her what had happened. She called Anthony from downstairs. And I told him again what had happened. And I said that my son had said that it was your son, Matthew, who said it. I said, please, can you ask your son not to say it again? He said, don't worry, there are only children playing around. Don't worry about it. I said, no, but my son is at home. He is at home crying. Please, can you just ask him not to say it again? That's when things changed. His voice changed. He said, who do you think you are? Coming in here shouting the ads in my house.
One of the things that the author talks about is in the UK, in Europe, and the resistance, one of the paradoxes, the resistance to migration. And yet Europe was a country, the whole of Europe, Europeans were migrating across borders. That's always been an issue. But also, Europeans have migrated around the world, the Commonwealth, various other imperialist countries have set up overseas postings and have benefited because they've gone abroad and taken the wealth often from those countries and brought them back. So this country has actually benefited in various ways from migration that we don't seem to acknowledge.
I'd like to do this sort of conference again. I think next time I'll push the boundaries even more, where rather than just having actors act the drama, I might bring the service providers into the drama. I might just push that boundary that little bit more and get the delegates at the table to be called into some of the drama. I mean, that's a thought that came to me today when it was happening, because everybody was quite voyeuristic and quite silent. But in order for this to work and for some resolution to these problems, we need to talk. Voices, the people at agencies need to kind of speak up and admit what their problems are and admit where they need their help and get that help. And that's what we were all here today for, was to actually offer support. So I'd like to see more support being offered agency to agency to get this right.